Coming up, former Tory leadership candidate Michael Heseltine has warned British voters that the 2024 general election campaign will be the most dishonest in modern times because of the refusal of all the main parties to debate the consequences of Brexit. Meanwhile, in France, Emmanuel Macron's sidekick, Prime Minister Gabriel Attal, is attempting to reduce support for the far-right French populist party headed up by Marine Le Pen by warning French voters that she once wanted Frexit, taking France out of the EU. Don't let's be like the British who cried after Brexit, he warned.
Ne soyons pas les Britanniques qui ont pleuré après le Brexit.
Stay tuned for more on what he had to say about a Brexit that Michael Heseltine wants British politicians also to be talking about. In his recent interview on radio channel RTL France, Prime Minister Gabriel Attal said, "Don't let's be like the British. Brexit has reduced Britain to tears." Emmanuel Macron's protégé is warning that Marine Le Pen's far-right party, National Rally, once wanted the French equivalent of a Brexit, a Frexit from the European Union. But Le Pen dropped the policy once French voters began to realise the harm that Brexit has done to their neighbours across the English Channel. Premier Minister Attal reckons that Le Pen's party remains secretly committed to pulling France out of Europe, as he knows that French voters wouldn't support a party that wanted to do this. Will we be stronger by shutting ourselves away? We will not be stronger by being more alone, he said, adding, "A large majority of British people regret Brexit and regret either not turning out to vote or voting for something that was negative for their country." A fact that is borne out by Brexit poll trackers ever since shortly after the fateful referendum back in 2016. Attal also pointed out that today there is more illegal immigration than ever in the UK since they left the European Union. There are massive economic difficulties in the UK because they left the European Union. Attal's mentor, President Emmanuel Macron, recently claimed in an interview with The Economist magazine that leaving the EU has impoverished the United Kingdom and done nothing to solve immigration in the UK. And as a segue into Lord Heseltine's comments, Macron added this comment about Brexit. "Nobody dares to say that anything is wrong. And so nobody is taking responsibility for anything." A theme that former Tory minister Michael Heseltine picked up on recently, writing in the Independent newspaper that three big issues in this general election campaign, the economy, immigration and defence, all need to be debated in the context of the UK's relationship with the EU, but that both Labour and the Tories are too scared to discuss Brexit because of the potential impact on their voter bases, saying that they're ignoring the elephant in the room because, Lord Heseltine says, both major parties are afraid of losing votes to the hard right. Labour needs to rebuild its red wall, while the Conservatives run scared of reform. And this is the dishonesty at the heart of the current election campaign. None of these major issues can be properly discussed and discussed honestly without reference to Brexit. But politicians on all sides are pretending that they can. The public seem to be way ahead of the politicians who are meant to be representing them when it comes to Brexit. Recent polling by Redfield and Wilton reveals that British voters link Brexit to two of the three most important issues identified for this election: the cost of living crisis and immigration. See, while I love to see the viewing numbers on this channel steadily increase, it's true that I get literally hundreds of comments saying things like, "Why don't you shut up about Brexit? We won, you lost, it," and other such erudite, educated and informed statements. And in some ways, I do understand that people who aren't paying attention might think that Brexit is indeed over and done with. The Redfield and Wilton poll, for example, showed that only 1% of the electorate think Brexit is the most important issue at this election. So you might think that that's evidence that Brexit is no longer an issue. But that same survey revealed that the top issue is the economy on 37% and the third top issue is immigration on 15%, and both are inextricably linked to leaving the EU. The survey also shows that 60% of people feel worse off since the Tories took the UK out of the EU in 2020, compared to a mere 13% who feel better off. And the attempts to ignore Brexit get even more troublesome when it comes to immigration. The survey showed that 39% of voters believe illegal immigration is higher as a direct result of Brexit, compared to 16% who think it's lower and 23% who think it's similar. On legal immigration, 36% believe Brexit has made it higher, while only 14% lower and 27% similar. Asked if immigration has become a bigger issue because of Brexit, 38% of the electorate agreed it is more of an issue, while 13% said less of an issue. So much for the Brexiteer promise to take back control of our borders. Lord Heseltine pointed out what should have been obvious to everyone prior to the Brexit referendum. Being outside the EU, and thereby leaving the Dublin Convention, post-Brexit Britain is no longer able to send back migrants coming in small boats and through other means. In fact, prior to the British referendum, small boat irregular migration wasn't even a thing. It is a child of Brexit. Michael Heseltine expressed my thoughts exactly when he said, the state of our economy, defence and environment, the need to level up our society, control immigration and restore Britain's standing in the world, none of these issues can be honestly addressed in isolation from our relationship with Europe. Yet Europe is the no-go area. Sunak, Starmer and even Ed Davey should be hanging their heads in shame at their lack of courage in confronting and discussing Brexit. But looking to the future, I feel the longer-term impact of Brexit has not begun yet to make itself fully felt. By isolating ourselves from the EU, the UK is adding to its defence vulnerabilities. If the orange serial sexual offender and convicted felon from across the pond were to get re-elected...
You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Whatever you want. Grab them by the pussy.
Then the UK will no longer be able to rely on NATO for its security needs. As he's so fond of childish nicknames himself, the man that I'll refer to as Baron von Shitsinpants is unlikely to step in to defend Britain in the event of attack by his pal Putin's Russia. That's why I agree with one of the few sensible Tories, Heseltine, that we should be discussing a closer defence relationship with Europe, adding that as a medium-sized country, we can do little alone. Turning his firepower specifically on Sunak, it seems, the Tory peer went on to say that there is brave talk of turning a corner, of a plan working. How can we seriously believe we can significantly improve our economic situation after severing our connections with our largest and nearest? How do you build Silicon Valley here if, for years, you cut yourself off from European research and return to the table as a supplicant? Our companies must compete with American and Chinese companies, technologically underpinned by huge defence and space budgets. And these are just some of the reasons why I agree with Lord Heseltine that we absolutely should be talking about Brexit throughout this election campaign and challenging the myriad lies that were spun by Brexiteers to con people into voting against their and the country's own interests. Not to mention the catchy slogans that so captured the imagination of the hard of thinking. We want our country back. They need us more than we need them. Take back control. Get Brexit done. There will be no downside to Brexit, only considerable upside. We hold all the cards. Sunlit uplands of Brexit. And so on. What a joke. I'll give you some final words from a sensible Tory. 8 years have passed. Brexiteers have had their hands on the tiller all that time. Why is it so few new trade deals have been done? Why has there not been the promised bonfire of regulations? The answer is simple. There were no plans. It was a pack of lies. The French public and their politicians see the truth of Brexit very clearly. So clearly, it's even changed the minds of their own Frexiteers, so they're no longer even suggesting leaving the EU. Isn't it about time that our own British political leaders started to acknowledge those Brexit lies and be honest with the British electorate about the massive harm Brexit has caused and will continue to cause this country?
Welcome to the Brexit, sir. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.